Hello, my name is Paul Archer. I am your host, and I am really excited to be joined by Tricia. Tricia, how are you doing?
I am great, Paul. How are you?
Very well, very well. So, Tricia, before we get stuck into the brand and the amazing work that you're doing right now, can you kind of take us back a few years? Starts at the very beginning of your career. How did you get to sort of joining this wonderful world of brand building that we love so much right now?
Yes. Okay, so my career began in high tech. I worked for a company at the time called CMGI. They were an internet holding company. I'm going to scoot back a little bit. I was agency side and got poached by CMGI. So when I was at CMGI, this was a really big deal because it was wholly owned and partially owned internet companies at the infancy of .coms. So while I was there, they had about 26 companies when I joined. By the time that I left, they had 76, and that was in less than a 3-year period. So I love building. I love coming into almost like where there's nothing, and I have to find my way through, muddle it through, and figure out how to build. And throughout my career, I have seeked out both agency side and client side opportunities where I like to be the person where everyone's like, gosh, I just don't know how to do that. And I'm like, okay, give it to me. I'll figure it out. I love puzzles and I love figuring things out. So my career is diverse, agency side, client side, across a huge ton of industries. And I love building and creating awareness for brands that desperately need it.
That's awesome. So a lot of things to jump into there, but how do you start, right? So you've done it enough times to have basically built up a model, I'm sure. If you're coming into a brand that hasn't really got everything nailed and you need to really turn them around and get them going again, where is the first place you look?
The basics. You have to take it right down to the raw basics. The most important thing for me is to build it with the right team. You can't build if you don't have the right people. I've had the luxury throughout my career to work with some extraordinarily talented people. And I pride myself on trying to seek out and work with those that are experts in their relative area of focus. And I try to get them on my team, because when you've got an incredible team, you can really accomplish anything because you've got that trust there. And then you can push everyone's boundaries to do things that we all have never done before collectively together. We accept the failures together and we accept the wins together. But for me, when you're building from the ground up, team is number one. And then it's based on the brand, because every brand has something different that you're trying to accomplish. But it really is, is the mark right? Is if it's got a tagline, what are we communicating from the logo, the mark? Is there a website? Is there social? Because sometimes there isn't. And overall, who are we talking to? And how do we want to present ourselves to those that we're trying to sell to in any way?
And so that journey of obviously hiring incredible talent, but once you've got them in place, to understand who you're talking to, how do you go in? I mean, presumably you've done this with industries you don't know anything about, right? So you're going from the foundation up. Where do you start with that? How do you start those conversations? What is it you're seeking to understand from those buyers so that you can be better at your job?
So where I am right now, that is actually a very applicable question for where I am right now. So I'm at Twisted X Global Brands. I was recruited here. It is a company of Western heritage, and it's a grouping of footwear brands. I don't live the Western lifestyle. I don't have any Western experience, and I've never been in footwear. And when the recruiter was recruiting me, I was really clear. I said, I'm not from Western. Yes, very clear. I don't have footwear. Very clear. They're looking for a brand builder. So in circumstances like that, you have to, for me, it was hard because I didn't have those experiences. But at the same time, I've got a company full of people that are in footwear and live the Western lifestyle. So tapping the knowledge within the walls first, relying on the sales force next, and then trying to get data and analytics from those end consumers or those that are buying and touching my brand. Ideally trying to build an arsenal of those that adore the brand is my ultimate goal.
And that super fandom is the thing that drives it forward. Do you believe that they exist already when you're coming in, or are you building them from scratch? You're going and telling that brand story. Like, how do you sort of see the difference between those two?
It depends on the brand. So this particular brand where I am right now, they have the arsenal of those that adore the brand, but there was nothing being done to cultivate and expand that, which that made this job really easy, because I wasn't coming in, because I've come into other organizations where they're bringing you on because they have a nightmare of their customer service is terrible. They have a terrible product, and that's really hard. That's the hardest thing. If the product stinks, there's not a lot that you can do to solve for that unless you throw a ton of money at it. But still, unless the product is good, that's challenging. But luckily here, product is fantastic. It was selling with literally virtually no marketing. So for me, it was just putting gasoline on it, really. How can we just amplify this to the level that we just have fans upon fans upon fans?
And how has that changed in the era of social media? So, Twisted X been around since before social, I would guess. Is that right?
Twisted X was founded in 2005, but because of the heritage of Western lives a very different lifestyle and is not as digitally forward as other industries. So Twisted X was not in really that kind of digital mindset until very recently, until I came on board and made digital being an area of focus, because it's necessary. At this point in the world of social media, your advocates are everywhere. And if you harness the right advocates, it exponentially grows at exponential rates. So it's finding those that can be your ambassadors, right? Your feet on the street, those that are going to be talking about and adoring your brand, rewarding and giving them the power to tell their individual, unique, authentic stories.
Now you're talking my language. This is definitely my job. Now, so talk to me. How did you do that? So you were coming in. Was there a sort of set program in place when you joined? Was there barely any socials happening at all? Did you build it up completely from scratch?
There was. We did have some social channels, but it was. I would say the aesthetic, the cadence, the tone, the voice, the messaging was just random. It was like whatever at that moment. Oh gosh, let's go outside in the parking lot and let's shoot this particular shoe and talk about how great it is, without having any strategy behind what are we trying to accomplish? What are the products that we're trying to either accelerate with sales? We're trying to either introduce to the market through via awareness. There wasn't strategy. Social was minimal. So it was everything being built from the ground up. Literally, I'm not kidding. Everything, we didn't have anything here. But that's the fun of it. The fun of it is the building.
The building is, that's the work, right? And that's the rewarding element of it. And then you were saying about you managed to get these advocates, these boots in the street, no pun intended, to be your brand ambassadors. Was that the next phase once you've got the social in, or was that integral to getting your social media more established?
They happened simultaneously. It was everything from elevating to the basics of photography, getting the right visual, right? Because before, if you don't have the right visual that's depicting where the brand is supposed to be going, it's unless everything is working in conjunction, the aesthetic, the tone, the voice, the people, the messaging, the product, it all has to work in unison. Like it's a perfect little recipe. You have to get the recipe right for that amplification to actually work to the level that you need it to work, whether it's organic or through paid or a combination of both.
And when someone does advocate for you, they make some sort of impact, whether that's online or offline. How are you tracking that, and how are you rewarding them for and recognize them for that?
We have different programs that we're doing. We track through UTMs and just kind of your normal, right, analytics. We track that way, and that's a new thing for us too. Like, there was no tracking that was being done before. There was also a huge overhaul of the .com that we finally now have a destination that depicts the brand properly, and all of the things that we're trying to that the brand does, from product and people and planet and partnership. Without the final, we had to build every single step. It's crazy. I mean, it sounds so basic, and so many kind of companies are, I would say, so much farther forward than Twisted X was. But it's amazing. Once you start to get the basics in place, the acceleration does speed up quickly. So back to your original question, how do we track? We're tracking the best that we can at this moment. And the reward of the ambassadors or the influencers are different. We have a number of brands in the family, and those influencers want to get rewarded in different ways. A lot of it for us is via product, which is super, super easy for us. A lot of it is we work with a lot of, I would say, influencers or ambassadors that are like, their follower base is small. So we give them the acceleration for their individual personal brands. So it's basically, we consider it a little bit of a partnership to help them. They help us, we help them.
So you're sort of platforming them, putting their content into your media buy or something like that. Is that right?
100%. Yep.
Fantastic. Which is a huge opportunity for them when they're early on in their career.
Yeah, we just now try, like, as we're getting these kind of models and influencers, giving them that platform, it's like now trying to keep them from our competition because they have such visibility now. So it's a wonderful problem to have, but that is a challenge too.
And what's the craziest thing you've seen your mega super fans do for you at the brand? Like, what's really surprised you, particularly coming in from not from the Western world? What has really blown you away?
So we have we do tons and tons of photo shoots. One of the brands in the family is Black Star. It's a higher end women's Western boot line. And we have, when we do our shoots, we'll have anywhere from 5 to 25 models, different locations all over, wherever we might be. We have models that beg us to come. They don't want to get paid. So from this, it's incredible. They just want to be part of, and they want content. So for me, it's amazing to me what they will do. We've got models that will drive or travel 10 hours to come for a 2-day shoot, won't want to be compensated, and they might just want a cool pair of boots. And it's amazing to me. Like, I've never experienced that in any other industry other than the Western industry.
Do you think that's kind of part of the influencer generation that is coming out now, is in that you've got a whole load of people who are like, you know what, I can make this a career. People are following me. The more that I do, the more brands I recognize. This is my foot on the ladder. Do you think they're doing it from a professional perspective, or is this about the brand love combination of the two? And fascinating to know the mindset that these people are doing when they're jumping in and deciding, yeah, I'm going to drive across the country to do a shoot. I'm going to take time off work, or whatever the case is.
I think that a lot of it is they're building their own personal brands and trying to partner up with like-minded brands that meld with their personal aesthetic. And when you get that to happen, and you've got a brand that supports their influencers and ambassadors, and I guess treats their content with as much respect as we treat our own personal content, that is a true partnership. So I think they're trying to build their own personal brands, and those brands that line up with them are lucky enough to we're all lucky enough to just connect at the same time.
Yeah, I love that. I spent some time with the team over at TikTok a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking me through their strong opinions on the difference between creators and influencers. And what the insight that I took away from that is, that everyone who creates content is a creator. An influencer is something you are. So being a creator is something you do, and the influencer is you become influential. You're basically famous. The old word for it used to be famous, but you're famous for your creations, and your social creator is the role that got you there, which for me gave me a real insight as to, okay, cool, right? Before you can become famous enough to be influential, i.e. an influencer, you've got to create. And that creation piece is the work. If you're able to create great content, they are visually aesthetic. You're able to work with brands to level them up. You can commercialize it as well. But at the heart of it is just that content, and that content which is being consumed across all the media platforms that we use every single day.
But I also see there's a difference when you were talking about creators versus influencers. So we have a number of photographers that are influencers for us. But I view those photographers, those truly, truly are the content creators. I have to say, I'm not sure how much they desire to be an influencer. By default, they end up being an influencer because they ultimately just want to create beautiful, compelling, like aesthetic of the world that they live, versus an influencer is the opposite. Like I view them as more of, it's about their platform, and the content is the conduit for them to level up. And we work with both for both of those reasons.
Yeah, so it's like the irony is the creator is the one who's become the influencer, yet the model who isn't necessarily creating is the one that's desperate to become the influencer, but isn't one yet.
That's right. Yes. Yes.
Amazing world that we live in. And the word of mouth, the way that it sort of passes, sort of travels for a brand like Twisted X. I mean, do you have regular events for your customers, or is it that where have you found is a place to find out where they hang out? Is it rodeos, or are these events? Like, how do you show up for your brand, for your fans as a brand, and how do you support them on a regular basis?
So we have core art. We have a bunch of different categories that we sell into. Western being our heritage, of course, that's the rodeo scene, anything around rodeo. We're preparing for right now, which is the largest event for us, is the NFR, the National Finals Rodeo in Las Vegas. It happens every December. We have sponsorships with athletes. So for us, it's showing up for our athletes. It's also showing up in our retailer locations at shopping venues during the NFR, and also just throughout the year, rodeo events and agricultural events too. We're trying to work more and more with youth through the FFA or 4-H. So for us, we're trying to show up with and for those that live the lifestyle of product that we deliver against. But we're also, Twisted X is also, now selling into mainstream retailers as well. And we show up a little bit differently in that way. It's our main focus is truly when it comes to events and destinations, it is our core Western audience that we're talking to.
Love it. Love a good rodeo as well. I've only been to the Houston rodeo, but it was a hell of a lot of fun.
They're fun. Yeah.
Fun. Mutton busting.
Okay.
You know what this is?
No.
Okay. Well, we'll probably have to cut this bit out though. This is one of my favorite discovery watching it. Was basically you get a toddler and you put a full face helmet on them and some body armor, baseball sort of protection, put them on a sheep and then let the sheep run. And the one that journeys the furthest is that fantastic.
Yep, fantastic. Yeah, all of the agricultural events and rodeos, it's crazy, but it's crazy fun.
Yes, a lot of fun, a lot of very cool people as well. So like in terms of actually when we sort of shifting back down to, in fact, talking about brand, how you show up for it and actually how you get in front of people. What do you see shifting, or what have you seen shift over the past sort of 12 months since COVID started to settle down? And where do you see it going next year? Ads, customer acquisitions have been skyrocketing. Where's next for brands? And are you worried for the way things are going? Are you excited? I'd love to get your read on this.
So Twisted X Global Brands, we are not a direct to consumer company. None of our brands in the family are direct to consumer. So our model is a B2B model where we sell to the retailers. We support our retailers so they can then basically have the click or the conversion with the end consumers. During COVID shifted so much for us. When COVID happened, at that time, we completely had to shift everything that we were doing because our success was completely reliant upon our retailers' success. And many of our retailers, as many retailers around the world, weren't open. So for us, we completely had to shift the way that we worked. We ended up turning into like an ad hoc agency where we were helping to build websites and content for social. So we ended up feeding and working with all of our retailers. Now, fast forward, what did that do for us? It actually really helped the relationship that we had with our retailers. We were able to help them with content and the connectedness and engagement that they had with their end consumers. Trends, kind of what I'm seeing now is, I would say, it's a big shift. Supply chain is still a huge challenge. And for the end consumers, it's still hard for them to find the product that they want, but there's a lot of product in the marketplace. We do see that there is a shift of end consumers that are visiting and going to retail destinations, and we're seeing a shift, not a decrease in e-com, but it's a shift in e-com. Some of our independent retailers are having better and more sales at their retail locations, where some of our more focused e-com retailers, they are seeing an increase in e-com sales. So we're seeing an increase everywhere. I'll say, just even with all of the discussion, about inflation and economy, we're not seeing a decrease on our side, which I don't know if we're just really lucky or it's a common theme, but we're having great success, and we are actually really excited for this kind of upcoming holiday season.
Amazing. And are you changing your strategy at all next year? Do you think that there's anything that you're going to be doing more on, doubling down on? A lot of brands that we're talking to are trying to get their head around social commerce and how they can really work with creators and advocates to drive that narrative. Not being D2C, that's often a little bit more challenging, but where else do you think this is going? Like, are you sort of like, do you think that still it's going to be the classic SEO Facebook budgets that's driving your retailers to it, or actually are we going to be seeing loads more offline activities as the world starts to shift a bit?
Yeah, I would say for us, what our focus is the same. We're still in major building mode, but I will say I do think that there is more and more of an opportunity for brands as the world now is much more comfortable with being out and about. Now, post-COVID, people are excited about being out. There's not that fear anymore. So I would say the adoption of more event-based efforts for us for awareness, and then for our retailers to drive commerce. That to me makes the most sense. And we are ramping up efforts, I would say, in the latter part of 23, but that's where the majority of our events happen. They happen in Q3 and Q4 for us.
Right, got it. So this is busy peak season for many reasons.
Yeah, yes.
Fantastic. Right, now, before I jump into some of the kind of the quick fire questions that I wanted to ask you, you're a published author. Tell me about the books you've written.
So it was a while ago. So I wrote a book for women based on style for you, your body, your life. And the other book was an inspirational co-authored book where I brought together 6 other CEOs. And at the time, we each wrote a chapter just about what inspires us. And my current manuscript that I'm working on is called Trust the Path. And it is, strangely enough, it is the journals and my notes of my journey during and post my divorce. So it's highly personal, and it's about an evolution of life and healing.
Amazing. And by the way, we can cut this bit out if you don't want to talk about it, because I knew that we were recording this as well. Does this tie back to your professional life in many ways? How do you find writing and building brands to have an overlap?
I would say there's a direct correlation between the skill set. I would say the topic there isn't an overlap. When I talk about what drives me from a personal level, which is self-healing and propelling of self. But I would say that the skill set of writing and articulation and communication is what I do every day. It's just part of who I am as a human being. It's core to who I am, and it's core to the job that I do. And if I can bring the human side at any point of time into the work that I'm doing through empathy, kindness, and healing, I will and try to.
Do you think there's a space for brands to be more kind, to be more empathetic?
I sure do. I absolutely do. And I actually think that at the place that I would say the collective world is at this moment in time, I feel that we need more of that. We need more authenticity. We need more connectedness. And I think that social as an entire, like as a whole, social has stifled that a bit, but I think that there's a huge opportunity for that to be opened up. But it's a different way of thinking, I would say.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that the generosity that brands can show, because brands are now much more than just a product you buy in a store. They have a personality. They have a direct contact with their customers through whatever channel that may be, but that never used to be possible, which means that they've leveled up to something. And what I found fascinating during COVID was how brands were a support network, the ones who did it well. Some brands just continued to try and sell their stuff even when people weren't interested in buying anything, and that didn't go very well for them. But some just showed up like, how can we help? Here's some things, here's an event we've put on, here's some content, we're here for you. Anyone having any time struggles, here's something which are around our products that we can get for you. Here's like an online gig that we've put on. And those are the ones that then now are the ones that are still growing, because that brand love, the advocacy they built for it. But it came from a place of generosity, of empathy, really, of what their customers are going through.
And yes, I agree with that. And I'll add to that in that I think that where brands can succeed is truly that authentic caring. Now, if you care about whatever that might be, if you care about the mental well-being of children, or you care about the planet, or you care about first responders, or insert anything. If the brand has a heart for something, do good. Because by default, I believe that if all brands were to just do a little bit of good, just a little bit of good, authentic good, not the good for the transaction or the click or the sale. No, that has a motive. You're going to do good because you care, and without that click. Truly, I believe that if all brands were to do that, it could make a huge difference. And I think people as human beings can sniff out when it's inauthentic.
And it means, and they don't buy, right? You buy from people you trust. It's so integral to everything about the way we humans consume, and we make our decisions about the way that we part with our money, is about trust. And brand building is synonymous with trust building. And actually, no one's built trust by lying and being inauthentic. They've built trust by being their true selves and sticking to those values throughout their their brand life and well, and the people who work at those brands as well.
So true. So true.
And powerful. Well, on that, I think a couple of questions I always like to ask. Now, what marketing related advice would you give to your 21-year-old self who's just starting off in their career? What would you say to yourself?
It's not really marketing advice, but this is advice in general. I would say speak up. Don't be afraid to have a voice. And it's okay. It's okay to make a mistake. That's two pieces, but there you go. That's two.
When did you really learn that? What was it that was the trigger that you went, yeah, I get it now. I wish I'd known this previously.
Probably not till pretty late in my career. I was more of kind of a passive follower. Hadn't yet found my voice. And it took me a bit to find my voice, and I found it through challenges. And at that point were challenging situations, environments. And then finally, when I spoke up, it felt pretty damn good. And I was like, okay. And then also having the confidence when you know your area of focus. I know marketing, I know branding. So have that voice because you have the experience. State it. And always bring data.
Back yourself, but bring data to that.
Bring data, because then the naysayers, they can't say anything because you're like, the data doesn't lie. So
love it. Putting the science behind it.
Exactly.
And then, so final question is like, who in the world of brand building would you like to take for lunch?
Oh my gosh, that's a fantastic question. Brand building. Okay, this might be a weird answer, but Oprah, just because she's not in branding or marketing, but through her career, the brands that she has built, I think she's a fascinating individual. So that might be a strange answer, but there you go.
Wow, and the lunch would just be fantastic. Imagine, well, I mean, just having lunch with Oprah would be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Or I would say Lady Gaga, kind of for the same reasons, just because of the advocate, like just the adversity in her life and what she believes in and the strength of her voice and belief.
Amazing. Also a great lunch. In fact, lunch with Oprah and Lady Gaga
Would be
a
pretty
couple
cool.
of glasses of wine, I think that would be a couple of hours well spent.
That would be pretty cool. Yes.
Fantastic, Tricia. This has been really inspirational and lovely, and I've learned a lot. Where can people learn more about what you're up to, about you, about Twisted X, or anything that you would like to tell the world?
I would say you can learn about Twisted X at twistedx.com. And learn about me. Gosh, I don't know LinkedIn.
We're all about the LinkedIn. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, that's fantastic. Well, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Paul, have a good day.